Are you planning a move from Seattle or any of the amazing cities in Washington state and planning to move to Colorado? Well, stay tuned. This video is for you. Hey everybody, I am Alyson Wahl with Live South Denver, your real estate strategist and realtor for the South Denver area. I specialize in helping people relocate to the Denver market. And while it may seem surprising to a lot of folks that people would move from the beautiful, mountainous, lush state of Washington to Denver, there are thousands of people that do that relocation every year. So I wanted to make something special just for you as you're trying to scope out Colorado and the Denver market and figure out, is it right for me? What are the differences, pros and cons? So let's jump right in. Washington state has been one of the states over the last few years that has been talked about having massive population growth. Well, along with that massive population growth, have been huge increases in home prices. The same is true here in Denver, but what we're gonna see is that Denver has a much more favorable median home price than what we're seeing in the strong job markets like Seattle, Tacoma, sleeper suburbs like Bellevue. Seattle's median home price right now is hovering around $800,000. The year before, it was only about $700,000. Median home prices in Pierce County are in the mid-4s. Median home prices in Snohomish County are in the mid-5s. As of last month, the median home price in Denver was $457,000. That means if you love the mountains and you love the outdoors, but you can't quite afford what Seattle's prices are, you can get a lot more home for your money here without giving up the lifestyle that you love. And when I ask Washington transplants what brought them to Colorado, there is pretty much one response, and it's sun. They all came to get away from the clouds and the rainy days and the gloom. Now, maybe if you're born and raised there, you kind of like it. But for everyone else, if you've moved in and you come from somewhere sunnier, it's a little bit of a shock to the system to have so many days of clouds and rain. Colorado has 300 days of sun a year, and Washington on the whole has half of that. Seattle is barely gonna break 150 days of sun a year. Some other things that came up that people love who've moved here from Washington is that we have all 4 seasons in full force. They say our traffic's a little bit better, though when I research it, they really come out about on par. They did say Denver is definitely less expensive than the major job market up in the Seattle area, and then they reiterated sun. That difference in sunny days does mean there's a pretty big difference in our average annual temperatures here. Denver's average annual high in the winter is around 49 degrees. Our low hits to an average of around the 20s. In the summertime, from June to September, we hit 80s to 90s for our highs, with beautiful lows in the 50s to 60s at night in the summertime. The temps in Northwest Washington in the winter are not too far different from what we have here. You run in the 40s for your highs, but you don't go nearly as low. You're generally in the 30s for your lows. But where you beat us out on paper and makes me think I would prefer Washington state is summertime. Lows in the 50s and highs in the 70s. That sounds dreamy to me. But all that rain, dampness, humidity, and cloudy days that's part of the culture of the Northwest means you guys have a lot more humidity than we do here in Denver. The average annual humidity for Washington state is listed to be at 60% for the dry side and about 80% for the windward side. Here in Denver, we're looking at something in the 30% range on average. That drier weather will help those of you who are looking to transition from Washington to Colorado, particularly if you are a native or have lived there a long time, because as I mentioned, our summers are hotter. We can get up into the high 90s. We do sometimes hit the hundreds. That is pretty rare, but it does happen. The lovely summers are when we max out in the high 80s. Those are my favorite. But because we're at higher altitude, because we have the dry air, because the sun does sometimes make us feel like we're roasting here with that thinner air and higher altitude, it can get pretty darn hot. And the dryness does help compared to, say, if you went to Texas, Florida, some of those southern states where you would add that kind of heat plus humidity, it could be sweltering and steamy. The plus side to our winters is you're probably prepared for them, but we have so much sun that when it's 30, there's no wind and the sun is out, it feels downright pleasant, even balmy. Sometimes we go out with just a vest, maybe even just a long sleeve shirt. It feels fantastic. Now, I said if there's no wind. That means, what if there is? We get a lot of wind here in Colorado. If you are from the windward side of Washington, you may not be as familiar with that. If you're on the leeward side, you know what I'm talking about. It is no fun when that wind comes rushing down the mountain into the Denver and Front Range. We call them Chinook winds in California. They call them Santa Anas. They can really get blustery, and they're probably the least favorite part of the climate and weather here for me in Colorado. Snow definitely starts here in Denver in October, usually goes till April, sometimes goes into May. We can sometimes have snow as early as September. We don't really get snow in the summertime unless we're headed up into the mountains. We do follow the rule of not turning on sprinklers and planting till after Mother's Day, because it can definitely still freeze in the early part of May here. Now, I know that Washington gets these lovely, slight, pleasant, drizzly rains. Well, when we get a storm, a lot of times they're huge and they come with big thunderheads and large hail. So if you're not used to that and having to watch out for your car, be concerned about getting hail damage all over your vehicle, that's gonna be something new for you here. All right, we touched a little bit on housing costs back at the front end of the video. Let's talk a little bit more about cost of living. I use bestplaces.net and nerdwallet.com when I'm comparing the cost of living between different places across the US, if you want to reference those for yourself. Bestplaces.net says that Seattle is 25% more expensive than Denver, and that housing in Seattle is 40% more than here in the Denver market. Nerdwallet.com agrees, saying that Seattle is about 29% more expensive than here in Denver. So that means if you have a $110,000 salary in Seattle, you could actually reduce that down to just shy of $80,000 here in Denver and maintain your same cost of living. If you live in Bellevue, Washington, bestplaces.net says that Bellevue is almost 35% more expensive than Denver. That means if you have a $110,000 salary there, you would need just shy of $70,000 here in the Denver market to maintain your lifestyle. Bestplaces.net also says that housing here in the Denver market is half as cheap as the Bellevue market. Nerdwallet.com says that Bellingham, Washington and Denver are on par. If you have a $110,000 salary out in Bellingham, you're probably gonna need just about the same to enjoy the same lifestyle here in Denver. They also say that housing costs are pretty similar as well. Now, I think we all know that the northwest corner of Washington state is where things are the most expensive. So what about Yakima? If you live in Yakima, Washington, and you're considering making a move to Denver, then it's a totally different ballgame. Yakima is way more affordable than the Denver market. A salary of $110,000 in Yakima would need to be about $160,000 here in Denver. And bestplaces.net says housing in Denver is about 40% more expensive. Now, nerdwallet.com doesn't fully agree. They say Denver is only about 18% more expensive than Yakima. But they say the housing is 70% more expensive. I'm not really sure how that adds up. How can you have 70% more expensive housing, but only need about 20% more in income? So I think I might throw that one out. It just doesn't make logical sense. But thought I'd share it anyway. All right, salaries and home prices are not all there is to cost of living. Taxes can be a huge part of it, so let's talk effective tax burden. Colorado and Washington State are actually on par with each other when it comes to your effective tax burden, even though Washington State does not collect personal income tax. If you'd like to check a little bit more of this out for yourself, I use WalletHub's annual tax burden report. I do not believe they've fully updated this for 2021, so I am still referencing 2020 data. Per WalletHub's data, the effective tax burden in Colorado is 8.4, and the effective tax burden in Washington State is 8.32. I mean, they're neck and neck. And the property tax rate is currently 0.51% here in Colorado and 0.98% in Washington State. In real world terms, if you bought a home here in South Denver and that home was $500,000, you're probably gonna pay a little less than $5,000 in property taxes. Yeah, that's about 1%, and that is the pretty common rate in the Douglas County and South Denver area. Now, if you buy an older home, one that's not in an HOA, it's entirely possible you will pay closer to that 0.51% and be paying close to $2,500 a year in taxes instead. But the state average is 0.51%. All right, there is no doubt that Washington State is one of the most beautiful places in the United States to live. I have visited there, I love it. So if you're making Colorado your home, what are you going to love here? Well, one of the things people love about Colorado is we're so dry and we have a good change of seasons, we don't have very many bugs. I like to say we have none because I come from the South and there's a crap ton of bugs down there. We pretty much have mosquitoes sometimes, we have ants, we have spiders, we have bees, we have wasps. That about sums it up. We have really great neighborhoods. We have a lot of open space. We have trails that connect all throughout the city. We have really vibrant communities where they like to do movie nights and food trucks. We have pools. We just do a lot where people love to come together and be outside, cornhole tournaments, you name it. It's a really fun place to be. There's the sun. We have those moderate tax rates, and we have a really strong job market. Our top industries are also high paying ones, and that's great news, especially when our home prices are substantially less than what is in the northwest part of the Washington state area. We have engineering, tech and sciences, oil and gas, healthcare, tourism, and financial services, and that's just to name a few. And we have the sun. But the thing that really thrills people the most about living in Colorado is the amazing lifestyle and the crazy, quick, and easy access to nature. It's so beautiful here and easy to enjoy it all the time. You can get out for biking, jogging, rock climbing, hiking, paddleboarding, and leaf peeping, all right outside your back door. Plus, skiing, snowshoeing, and rafting are all just a short drive away. I know there is skiing accessible in Washington state, but if you have kids and you're planning to move here and you want to help them up their ski game, check out the Epic School Kids Ski Pass. It's a free pass to 5 ski resorts, giving them 20 free days of skiing for K through 5th graders. Okay, I can't round out a video by not giving both sides of the coin. We've talked about all the great stuff about Colorado. We've talked cost of living, pluses. Now let's talk about the potential cons. What might you miss if you're gonna relocate from Washington state to Colorado? Greenery. The fact that we're dry, that we're a desert state, means we do not have tall, thick, green, beautiful trees and forests. We do not have raging, rushing, beautiful rivers. We definitely don't have ocean views, and we're not very heavy on lakes. So it's just a totally different way of life here than what you would be used to coming from the PNW. Seafood. We do not have it here the same way you do. Yep, we can get fresh seafood flown in, but you can't just go down to Pike's Place Market and get your own fish from the fishmonger. You can't go clamming. So that's definitely something else you may miss. And I think I could just sum it up from those who have lived in Washington state for a long time and have moved here. It's just the PNW vibe. There's just something very different here, even though they love sunshine, access to mountains, rock climbing, skiing, snowshoeing, mountain biking, all of those things. We have very different cultures, and I think people may love both places, but they miss something about that green and lush and water and even the cloudy days, because we don't get that many of them here. So if you love that, you will definitely miss it here. You may also love it here, but still miss it. So I just want to share that with you. If you are thinking about moving to Denver, moving to Colorado, and I can help you in any way, know that I would love to connect with you, serve you however I can. You can call me, you can text me, you can email me, and it would be my delight to chat with you. Hey, I will see y'all next week.